Right? Oh yeah, the sport mode is back. Yeah. Track mode is still the king. What's up, guys? Welcome to Red 5 Out. Today we're going to be taking the Mustang to the shop to get a couple goodies installed. And so if you have been following the channel, you know we got some new brakes that are needing some installation, and also we reached out to Corsa for some warranty. So I have the Corsa Extreme on this car, and since I've gotten it, I've had a couple issues that really didn't bother me. But I figured the amount of money you pay for this exhaust, you want to get the clear answer. So I spoke to Corsa representative and reached out to them. They sent me, explained the issues I was having, and they sent me new tips that should fix the issue. Now, if you haven't followed what's been happening with the Corsa Extreme exhaust, well, there's two issues with the Corsa Extreme exhaust that I had, and I'm hoping these new tips that Corsa sent me is going to resolve it. But they acknowledged the first batch, I was one of the early adopters for the Corsa Extreme exhaust. They said, well, the first couple batches had some defective springs, and over time they didn't work as intended. They revised the tips to allow for the Corsa Extreme exhaust to work well. So the issues I had with the Corsa Extreme, one was that over time, if I always have the exhaust set in quiet mode because I don't want to annoy any of my neighbors, so I keep it in quiet mode for the startup because the Extreme exhaust is very loud. But over time, it became where the flaps would open for a split second and they would close back in. This was causing the cold start to be loud for literally a split second. It would go back to quiet. So this was malfunctioning. And the other part is, as you know, the Mustangs come with 4 different exhaust modes. You've got quiet, normal, sport, and track. And because of the valve design, or the defective valve design, it did not allow me to use the normal and sport modes. If I had the valves open all the way, it will work just fine. If I had them closed, it will work fine as well. But if you put in normal and sport, there was something with the tension where it would just kind of flap, and you would hear this hissing sound in normal and sport mode, which was very annoying. I personally didn't use the normal and sport mode that much. It didn't bother me. It was either in track mode or quiet mode, but it just kind of got annoying, and because the price you're paying for the exhaust, I wanted to get it fixed. Alright, so we just got back from the shop with the new tips installed. These are the old ones with the valves and everything. So they sent me basically 2 tips. It's a quad exhaust, but this is where it hosts the actual spring, and they said this part was defective. So we have replaced it. Hopefully that has fixed the issue. Let me show you how the new tips look. This is what the new tips look. Says this one that got replaced. As you can see, this one has the motor on it, and on this side it was this one right here. As you can see, has the motor. I actually had to clean the other tips because this one was like literally brand new, and then this one was very dirty because this has been on the car for 5 years. So even though I wash the car often, just having a brand new tip right next to a used one did not look good. So I cleaned up a little bit, but as you can see, it's starting to get a little bit dirty now. But yeah, the new exhaust tips are installed from the Corsa Extreme, and we're gonna go ahead and go out on the road to test it out to see if there's still issues with the normal and sport mode, and if we're still getting that issue where the valves kind of open and close in the quiet mode or quiet start mode at the startups. But let's go out on the road. We're gonna test out the normal and the sport mode on the car to see if that's fixed, because remember I said the normal and sport mode, because the valve design, it would because the pressure coming from the exhaust, it would kind of flap a little bit, which would create a hissing sound, which was just made the normal and sport mode pretty much unusable on this car. So I was always using the track mode or quiet mode if I was on a road trip, or for instance like this where it was just a quiet cold start. All right, so I'll catch you guys on the road. All right, so we're out on the road now. I have the exhaust set to normal mode, and we're gonna go ahead and drive around and also check on the sport mode as well. So all right, so now that the car is actually a little bit warmed up, I'm gonna give it a little bit more gas, because usually when it would happen, you give it a little bit gas, and when valves are working, that's where it kind of builds enough pressure where they start kind of flapping and causing the hissing sound. So let's go ahead and give it some gas. Oh yeah, no hissing whatsoever. It's just so interesting to hear the normal mode for the first time, even though I've had this exhaust for like 5 years now, or 4 years, and I've never experienced normal mode, because every time you get on it, it was this annoying hissing sound. It's actually kind of very tame in normal mode, which I guess it's supposed to be. I've always heard this exhaust in either quiet or track mode, so to me it was like a magical experience where it was just so quiet, or you hear the Coyote in this track mode, which is like obnoxiously loud. I enjoyed it, but of course normal mode and sport mode can be fun. So let's give it one more shot, and we're gonna switch to sport mode and see if that's also fixed as well. So we're gonna go around this and get on the car a little bit. Oh yeah, the normal mode is finally fixed. No hissing sound whatsoever. So I'm glad the tips are working as they intended. Now I'm gonna switch it to the sport mode, and we're gonna go ahead and see if that's also fixed. You can definitely tell it got slightly louder, which it's supposed to be. I'm actually gonna be curious how much of a difference is between sport and track now. I was never able to really enjoy the sport mode because of this issue first. So let's go ahead and give it some gas. Oh yeah. This sounds pretty good too. No hissing whatsoever. I have the windows up right now, so you probably can't hear the exhaust too much. But the reason I have it set up that way, because if I don't, you're probably gonna hear a lot of wind noise, so that's not gonna be fun. And I really want to pinpoint this hissing noise, because that's, you know, that's why I changed the tips. And if the hissing noise is back, then, you know, it's not gonna be good. So we're gonna go ahead and make this turn and then try a couple more times to see if this has fixed the issue. All right. Oh yeah, the sport mode is back. No hissing sound. The tips are working as they're intended to be. So I'm finally get to actually have the 4 usable exhaust modes with this Corsa Extreme. Now I'm curious how loud the track mode is compared to the sport mode. Normal was definitely tame. Sport, I can tell, gets pretty loud. I just don't know how loud it is compared to the track mode. So we're gonna go ahead and switch it now to track mode. Let's see. It is definitely louder. I think sport mode opens up a lot more when you give it more gas. But the track mode in even lower RPMs, I'll go back so you can see the RPMs. Even in lower RPMs, you can tell that there's a difference. It's louder, and of course, as you give it more beans, it just gets louder compared to the sport mode. Yeah. Track mode is still the king. I feel like sport mode is, I don't want to say useless. Sport mode is, I guess for lack of a better word, it's kind of useless compared to the track mode, because there is a sport mode is loud, but it's not as loud as track mode. And if you really want your car to sound a little bit tame, you would just use the normal mode. And the quiet mode is good for road trips, or if you don't want to, you know, wake your neighbors up. So I feel like my most used modes would be quiet, normal, and track. I probably won't use sport as much, because if you're gonna, like, sport is loud. If you're gonna be loud, might as well go for track. Normal makes sense because it's a little bit more tame. So if you want to hear the exhaust and not have the valves completely shut off like the quiet mode, then it makes sense to use that over the track mode or over the other modes. But other than that, I don't see myself using the sport mode a lot. But yeah, so it looks like the Corsa Extreme, the tips that they sent me are working as they're kind of supposed to. The quiet thing is fixed now, where the valves don't really open up on the cold start. It does stay shut. I'm hoping that's the case and it remains this way, because previously it was like a 50-50 shot. So this time when I started it, it did not do it. So I'm hoping it's going to be fine. But the biggest thing was the normal and sport mode. That was something that would always happen. If I had a normal sport mode for the exhaust, the hissing sound was just so annoying. Every time you drive it, you would hear the hissing sound. But now, with these new tips, I can actually use the normal and sport mode without a problem. You give it gas, there's no hissing sound. Previously, the valve would just kind of rattle, and you would hear this hissing sound, and it was just not pleasant at all. So I'm glad all that is fixed now. Corsa finally came through, and I have to say, if you guys remember from the unboxing videos of these tips, they came in real quick. I had just literally emailed them, and within a day, they responded back, and I think 2 days after, they had already sent the tips. So I was very impressed with the customer service. They're really staying behind their product, which is really remarkable, especially the amount of money you're paying for that exhaust. You want a company that stands behind their product and actually supports it. They didn't argue. They didn't say, send a video clip, send, some proof that it's doing anything. Nothing. They just sent the, they just sent the new tips without any questions asked. So I truly appreciate Corsa for doing that for me. But yeah, so the exhaust is finally fixed. Which means I can, if I do decide to go long tube headers, I can actually use normal mode or maybe even sport mode, because track mode would be obnoxiously loud with the long tube headers. So now I have 4 usable modes. That's really exciting. In 4 years I've owned this exhaust, I had only 2 usable modes, but now we finally have 4. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are experiencing issues with the Corsa exhaust, active exhaust, definitely reach out to them. They're very good with this. And as you can see, the revised tips really help, and all the issues are kind of fixed now. Make sure you are subscribed to follow the build, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.